Bills Mafia, grab a seat, because day one of training camp already delivered one of the most fascinating, human, and downright entertaining interviews of the entire summer, and it came straight from newcomer Bradley Chubb. Sitting down fresh out of the shower on One Bills Live, Chubb opened up about everything: his wedding, his new team, his leadership philosophy, and one absolutely wild draft day story that ties his entire career directly to Josh Allen in a way most fans probably never even knew about. So buckle up, because we're breaking down every single detail. Let's start with the obvious question everybody wants answered first. What is actually different about this training camp compared to everywhere else Chubb has played in his career? And his answer might surprise you, because it's not really about the coaching staff or the scheme, it's about the setting itself. Chubb explained that being tucked away at a college campus, living in dorm rooms, eating meals with teammates every single day, creates a bonding experience that's becoming increasingly rare across the league. Most teams have moved away from this old-school training camp model entirely, but Buffalo has stuck with it, and according to Chubb, it's paying off in ways that go far beyond just football. He called it a genuinely unique experience, something he hadn't had in 8 years in this league before arriving in Buffalo. Now, before we even get into the football side of things, let's talk about the personal life update, because Chubb has had quite the offseason. He got married in May, right at the tail end of OTAs and minicamp, turned 30 years old, joined a brand new team, and is about to move into a brand new stadium. That is an enormous amount of major life changes packed into just a few short months. And yes, for those wondering, the honeymoon did happen, squeezed in right after OTAs, conveniently timed to also celebrate both his birthday and his wife's birthday, since the two fall just 2 weeks apart. Turns out, they're both Cancers, which, depending on how much stock you put into zodiac signs, might explain quite a bit about their compatibility. Efficient scheduling, if nothing else. But let's get into the real story here, the one that's been quietly living in Bills lore for years and is now finally getting its proper spotlight. Back in the 2018 NFL Draft, Bradley Chubb and Josh Allen were both elite prospects that Buffalo desperately wanted. As the story goes, general manager Brandon Beane was aggressively trying to trade up to secure Josh Allen, and found himself on the phone with the Denver Broncos, then run by John Elway. Denver reportedly told Buffalo they would be willing to move the 5th overall pick, but only if their guy wasn't there when it came time to pick. That guy was Bradley Chubb. Denver selected him 5th overall, and Buffalo, forced to scramble, ended up making a separate trade with Tampa Bay to move up and select Josh Allen with the 7th overall pick instead. Think about that for a second. 2 players drafted just 2 picks apart in the same draft class, connected by the exact same trade negotiation, ending up on completely different teams for years, and now in 2026 both wearing the same uniform. Chubb confirmed he was well aware of this story, but explained just how much it's followed him throughout his entire career. Once he got to Denver, he said the front office and fans there spent years lamenting that they hadn't taken Josh Allen instead, especially as Allen developed into one of the most dominant quarterbacks in the sport. Chubb admitted he heard about it constantly, joking that he and Josh have basically been tied together his entire career simply through that shared draft history. Now, instead of being on opposite sides of that storyline, they're teammates chasing the same goal, and Chubb didn't hide his excitement about finally getting to watch Josh Allen's continued rise from the best possible seat in the house, the same locker room. And speaking of Josh Allen, Chubb gave one of the most entertaining answers of the entire interview when asked about what it was like game planning against Allen before joining the Bills. He didn't sugarcoat it one bit. He called it one of the most miserable defensive challenges in football. According to Chubb, the entire defensive strategy against Allen boils down to an impossible balancing act. Give him too much time in the pocket and he'll pick your defense apart with pinpoint accuracy. Rush him carelessly or take the wrong angle, and he'll simply take off and make you pay with his legs instead. There is no clean, safe way to attack him. Chubb even joked about the visceral frustration of watching Allen escape what should have been a perfectly designed, well-executed defensive play, only to turn it into a touchdown seconds later, leaving opposing defensive coordinators completely bewildered on the sideline. Now that he's on the other side of that nightmare, Chubb couldn't be happier, joking that he can't wait to watch Josh Allen throw on what he called the cape and take over games from the friendly side of the football for once. Now let's shift over to the leadership side of things, because this is where Chubb's veteran presence really becomes clear. Coming into a new locker room as a 9-year veteran is always a delicate balancing act, and Chubb explained his approach in a way that felt refreshingly grounded. Rather than walking in and trying to immediately impose his own leadership style on Buffalo's already established defensive line room, he said his first priority was simply observing. He wanted to understand the culture and chemistry that already existed among established Bills defenders like Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau before trying to fold his own leadership approach into the mix. He specifically praised the defensive line's tight bond, noting how the group is constantly joking around, sitting together, and spending time with each other both on and off the field, a dynamic he says he immediately noticed the moment he arrived. He also touched on something that genuinely stood out to him about the broader team culture in Buffalo compared to previous stops in his career. In a lot of locker rooms, position groups tend to stick tightly to themselves. Defensive linemen hanging out with defensive linemen, offensive linemen sticking with offensive linemen, and so on. But in Buffalo, Chubb says that dynamic completely dissolves. Offensive linemen hang out with defensive backs. Different position groups mix constantly at meals, at team activities, throughout the building. He specifically credited star left tackle Deion Dawkins for setting an early tone with him, immediately welcoming him with a kind of open, brotherly energy that set the standard for how the whole locker room operates. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about the type of environment this Bills team has built heading into a pivotal season. Of course, no conversation about this Bills team right now would be complete without addressing the elephant in the room, the transition to an entirely new coaching staff. Chubb, despite being the new guy himself, offered a fascinating outside perspective on how the veteran players who have been in Buffalo for years are handling the shift. According to Chubb, the overwhelming sentiment inside the building is optimism. Players have described the new regime as a breath of fresh air, a jolt of new energy after years of doing things one particular way. He specifically praised new head coach Joe Brady's messaging, noting that Brady has been upfront with the team that this is a true year-one process for everybody involved. Not making excuses in advance, but setting honest expectations that adjustments and growing pains are a natural part of installing something brand new. That theme carried directly into Chubb's breakdown of new defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard, someone Chubb described with genuine respect and admiration. Leonhard spent a decade playing in this league, succeeding, according to Chubb, largely because of his football intelligence rather than pure physical talent alone. And that same sharp, cerebral approach is translating directly into how he's installing Buffalo's new defensive scheme. Chubb explained that unlike some coordinators who simply hand players a play call without much context, Leonhard takes the time to explain the reasoning behind every single call, why it's being used, in what situations, and what it's designed to counter. For a 9-year veteran like Chubb, that kind of teaching style has been a breath of fresh air, allowing the entire unit to play faster and smarter rather than simply memorizing a playbook line by line. Chubb also touched on an important structural detail regarding how much freedom players actually have within Leonhard's defensive system. While the coordinator obviously makes the official call, Chubb emphasized that the front five defensive linemen and edge rushers are given real freedom to read situations and react instinctively rather than rigidly sticking to a predetermined rush lane. According to Chubb, the coaching staff wants aggressive, instinctive play up front, even if that occasionally means deviating from the exact original play design. The defensive backfield, by comparison, has to operate with a bit more discipline given the more rigid demands of coverage responsibilities, But up front, the mentality is clear. Read it, trust it, attack it. One particularly heartwarming moment in the interview came when Chubb was asked about defensive lineman Michael Hoke's recovery from a significant injury. Having gone through a serious long-term injury himself earlier in his career, Chubb spoke with real empathy about what it takes mentally and physically to fight back from that kind of setback. He praised Hoke's return to full speed as genuinely inspiring, noting how meaningful it is to watch a player get counted out by doubters only to return and perform at a high level once again. Chubb specifically highlighted Hoke's football intelligence as well, noting his ability to identify pass rush concepts pre-snap and communicate quick adjustments to teammates. Something Chubb says he's excited to build real chemistry around as training camp progresses. So what does all of this tell us heading into the season? It paints a picture of a defensive room that is simultaneously deeply talented, tightly bonded, and being taught by one of the sharper defensive minds this coaching search could have landed. Add in a veteran presence like Bradley Chubb, someone with championship pedigree, a clear leadership mentality, and, as it turns out, a truly unique and deeply personal connection to the very quarterback he's now protecting instead of hunting. And you start to understand why there's real optimism building inside that Buffalo locker room this summer. It's rare that a single training camp interview delivers this much substance, personal milestones, a jaw-dropping draft day connection, real insight into the new coaching staff, and a genuine window into the locker room culture that's being built in Buffalo right now. But that's exactly what Bradley Chubb delivered on day one. And if this is any indication of the kind of leadership and insight he's bringing to this defense, Bills Mafia has plenty of reasons to be excited about what's building behind the scenes this season. All right, that's the breakdown. Let us know down in the comments what stood out to you most from Chubb's interview. Was it the wild Josh Allen draft day connection, his approach to leadership, or his honest breakdown of what it's like trying to defend against Allen? Drop your thoughts below. We want to hear from you. And if you're enjoying this kind of in-depth training camp coverage, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe right here at Buffalo Focus so you don't miss a single update as camp continues to roll on this summer. Thanks for watching Bills Mafia. Go Bills!